Hi, everyone. This is Jeremy Cohen with the Mishkan Tabernacle exhibit. I'm here with Kevin Fisher, president of Ark Discovery. You can find his information at arkdiscovery.com. We're going to be talking about Noah's Ark today, the discovery at the Derpner site, and what artifacts we have here today and some
Yeah, so we're going to
magazine
show you a
articles.
piece of metal from the Ark, but first, this site was first shown to the public in 1960 in Life magazine. You see the boat-shaped formation here, nice pointed front, rounded back end here. And so this got a lot of interest of various folks around the world. And Ron Wyatt, who's featured on our website, he went out there in 1977 and he found various things that proved it really was the Ark. But when I was there in 2000, I was able to locate this part of a washer. It's a crescent piece of a round washer here. And I sent off a sample of it to Galbraith Labs, and it came back showing 8% aluminum metal and also 1.5% titanium metal. Both of those are man-made metals, Jeremy, and that tells us this site is a man-made site. It's not a natural formation. It's a site that was built by man, and it's the exact length that's stated in the Bible. It's 300 Egyptian cubits. Moses wrote Genesis. When he says 300 cubits, he's speaking of the cubits he's familiar with.
Yes, correct.
Where was he schooled? He was schooled in Egypt. The modern 18-inch cubit didn't exist in his day. Okay, so you got to use the longer 20.62-inch cubit of the time of Moses. 300 of those is 515 feet. And that's the exact length of this site out there in eastern Turkey, 17 miles from Mount Ararat. Mount Ararat is across the valley. Mount Ararat is a false site. It didn't exist at the time of the flood.
That's correct.
It came up centuries later after the flood, and it was 17,000 feet. The waters of the flood only got up to 7,000 or 8,000 feet. And yet the Bible says the tallest of mountains were covered. So all mountains above 7,000 or 8,000 feet have come up after the flood through plate tectonics, plates shifting and up thrusting by hitting each other, or volcanic activity such as Mount Ararat. So Mount Ararat is a totally false site. This is on a mountain range, the real Ark, across the valley from Ararat. It's in the mountains of Ararat, the Bible says. And the name Ararat is the name of the ancient country Urartu. So the Ark came to rest in the mountains of the ancient country of Urartu. When you go out there, you'll see some businesses that say Urartu Automotive, for instance. So the name is still being used. So the Ark did come to rest in the correct site in the mountains of Urartu or Ararat. And the site contains the petrified wood, rib timbers. Radar scans show a hole underneath it. 90-degree angles inside of it, but no permit has ever been issued. And that's no one's fault except for the government. They will not allow a dig there. So it's the real site. God has brought out this evidence to be a testimony to the world.
Wow. And it's just so fascinating to me that there are many points of evidence that this structure is actually the remains of Noah's Ark. I mean, if you can imagine how a boat-like figure would look after 4,400 years,
yes,
it would have to be preserved by more than just because the wood would erode. So can you tell us a little bit about the history of how it became preserved? And
so the fact it was pushed down the mountain by a mud and lava flow and covered by a lot of dirt and so forth, and that helped to preserve it. If it had been left out in the open all these years, it would have been totally eroded away, decomposed. But God sent this mud and lava flow to cover it, and just the top edges of it were basically showing in 1977 when Mr. White went out there. But in 78, he started praying that God would send an earthquake to excavate the site, to basically lower the ground around it. And within 2 weeks, an earthquake did take place.
wow.
The dirt around it did drop, and so it looks like the Ark came up out of the ground because of this earthquake. And so by exposing the sides of it, you can see better the rib timbers. I was able to find man-made metal on opposite sides of the Ark. And so God has been helping reveal these discoveries for mankind to see. And folks, we need to appreciate what
Absolutely.
he's done.
Absolutely. And that's just fascinating to me that the points of evidence for this structure being Noah's Ark, first of all, it's in the right place. And according to the Bible, it wasn't on the top of or the side of the Mount Yartu proper. It was
Hmm.
actually below it. And if you can imagine, I think I heard this illustration, if you put a floating duck in a bathtub and put something like a Lego, the chances that that duck is going to land on the Lego is the same chances you got of the boat landing on a higher place. It would just simply
Hmm.
flow down the side of it until it reached a flat enough plane for it to rest.
Hmm.
And that's why it's not likely that the ark is on the mountain of Ararat proper, because um, it just wouldn't be likely according to laws of physics. And also, there are multiple points of evidence that it is the actual structure. As you've mentioned, there are man-made indications from tests done. I think there was a sonar test done or some type of radio
Yes,
test.
right. The resistivity scans um, did show that there are 90-degree angles in there. You can actually see a ramp system in two different places, to go to the different levels. So it's the real thing, and the government has not issued an excavation permit. That's too bad. Yeah,
Sure, and I'll ask you more about that later because I've always wondered
yeah,
why that's not the case. Perhaps they have things that they're concerned about.
yeah,
But when you look at it initially, a lot of people will write it off as a natural geographic phenomena or just a natural formation in
yeah.
general. But as Kevin mentioned, there are rib timbers. You can see these man-made indicators that this was once
Hmm.
a man-made structure. It still
Yes.
is, but time has caused the natural erosion and made it look like it's part of the mountain, but
Yeah,
it's
because there's
not.
a lot of soil inside of it. Like I said, it was covered by mud and lava flow. The very outer planks that would have been on the very outside of it are missing basically, and you have instead the rib timbers left around the outside of it, and then a lot of mud just filling most of the boat. So, but if you look at the facts, the petrified wood that was found by Ron
Mhm.
White, a deck timber in multiple layers, it looks like a cypress, which fits the biblical narrative,
Mhm.
and um, it is petrified wood. So you have the wood, the man-made metal, exact length as stated in the Bible, rib timbers, 90-degree angles inside the structure, and also a hole. The resistivity scans show a hole underneath it, like a boat, like a ship.
Mhm.
So all these things point to it. Hey, it's the real site.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And it's in a court of law, if you present evidence like this to confirm a narrative, it
yeah,
just would be, the jury would be, yeah, 100%, this is actually valid according to the witness of the Bible.
yes,
But again, there's just many different people that would criticize it for many different reasons.
yeah.
But the facts remain, the evidence remains that this supports this structure being Noah's Ark in
Hmm.
Turkey, in Ararat, and nearby also there's the Valley of Eight, and there's also many
Yes,
pieces of evidence there that we might go on in a different video. So stay tuned,
yeah,
guys.
yeah.
Thank you, Kevin, for sharing that about
Thank
the
you,
Ark.
Jeremy.